It's Nick and Amy's fifth wedding anniversary. Their wedding isn't like the conventional happy home, and in fact, one would expect his fifth anniversary to be a roller coaster of joy. But he goes to his twin sister Margot's bar, where he asks for a drink. Margot realizes he's worried, and she asks him what is wrong. In one word, he tells her the issue is Amy. He narrates that it is their anniversary, and he remembers the first time he met her. They met at a program, and they clicked immediately. They walk themselves out of the program and they talk about each other. He eventually asks to kiss her, and gradually he gets down on her, and she declares that she loves him. He tells Margot what they gave each other on their first anniversary, how she plays games with clues on every anniversary, and even how he proposed to her. Amy is the daughter of renowned writers. They write fictional books about her childhood, and she has this fictional personality called Amazing Amy. She has also grown up to be a writer, and she is doing beautifully well for herself. Nick receives a call from his neighbor, Walt, that his cat is roaming the area. He leaves the bar and goes home. He takes his cat and enters the open house. He screams and calls for Amy but can't find her. But he notices a broken table. He calls the police because he feels something is wrong. And an officer, Detective Rhonda, takes over the case. He takes them around the house, and when Rhonda gets to Amy's reading room, she realizes the missing person is Amazing Amy. She sees splatters of blood around the house, and she marks it. Then she tells Nick that considering his wife's personality, they will treat it as a missing person case, and forensics has been deployed to her house. She asks Nick if Amy has any friends, but Nick says he doesn't. She also asks about her blood group, but he says he doesn't know. She wonders if they are married and asks Nick to call Amy's parents. Nick makes the call, and his mother-in-law asks to speak with Rhonda. He sees his father at the police station too. His father had run from his nursing home and walked on the road before his arrest. Nick asks to take his father home, and he takes his father to his nursing home. He returns to sleep at his sister's place, and they talk a little about what the police have asked him before he goes to bed. The following day is Amy's police press conference. He goes to the police station where he meets Amy's parents, and her dad hugs him, reassuring him that they will find the girl. During the conference, he is subjected to several of the journalist's wishes, and he has to smile for the camera and announce that they will have a home for anyone who volunteers in the search for Amy. That night, Rhonda returns to his house, and she asks the forensics if they have found anything. Indeed, the splatters she has seen are blood splatters, and they see a folder with Clue 1 on Amy's shelf. A woman around the environment with a triplet called Noella also visits and claims she is Amy's best friend. Rhonda asks Noella to go for a while, and she calls Nick and asks what the Clue 1 means. He tells her it is their anniversary game, and looking at the clue, he can see Amy is referring to his office. They visit his office where he works as a literature professor. Rhonda sees the lady's panties in his office and takes them, and they also see Clue 2. He insists he doesn't know where the Clue 2 is, but he knows it's his father's house. He goes there later to take Clue 3, but Rhonda stalks him there. He keeps the Clue 3 before Rhonda interrupts him and says he is sure that this isn't the place Clue 1 is talking about. Shockingly, the police also discover everything they own is in Amy's name. Also in the flashback, Amy talks about when Nick lost his job, how they had to relocate because his mother was sick, and how they couldn't even save his mother who died. Their marriage broke gradually and she became what she didn't know. That night, Nick returns to Margot's home, and his college girlfriend, Andy, visits him. They spend the night together, but Margot finds them in the morning. Margot gets angry at Nick for cheating and lying, but he claims it was hell living with Amy. The journalists write about how Nick is not feeling sad about his wife's disappearance. Rhonda also finds out that Amy tried to buy a gun on Valentine. They also see that Amy lost a lot of blood in the kitchen, which was cleaned off. In a flashback, it is shown that Amy once asked that they give birth, but Nick pushed her off that day. During Amy's procession, Noella comes and interrupts Nick. She asks Nick what did he do with his pregnant wife, and everyone asks several questions. Rhonda investigates Nick, who insists his wife isn't pregnant and that he didn't clean any blood on the day she went missing. They receive Amy's medical files, confirming she is indeed pregnant. Angrily, Nick decides to get a lawyer. He returns home and journalists crowd their house. He reassures Margot that he didn't kill his wife and that Amy didn't want a child because he went to a fertility clinic and Amy didn't do her part. Rhonda tries to find the last evidence that could make her arrest Nick, which is Amy's body. She decides to visit Nick's dad's home and search. She searches for the hidden passage to the basement and finds Amy's diary. In Amy's diary, she writes about her plans to escape and frame Nick for her death. She is seen leaving the house and driving off while talking about how Nick killed her mentally and physically and then proceeded to cheat on her. She claims the crime must be equal to the punishment, so he must die of murder. So she befriends a local idiot, Noella. She filled her with her horrible marriage story, stole her urine, and took it to the hospital to get a pregnancy filed. Staged her crime scene by pouring her own blood. She hiked up her death insurance and made some purchases on her card with Nick's name. She bought a car and ran off. She relocates to a new place, takes a new name, Nancy, and starts a new life. She also talks about when she found out Nick was cheating. Also, Nick figures that Clue 3 is Margot's house. When he gets to the basement, he finds a box with a letter, which he decodes as Amy wishing he rot in prison. Margot realizes he married a psychopath and advises him to get a great lawyer, Tanner Bolt. Nick travels down to find Tanner. On the other hand, Amy becomes more conversant with her new home and name. She spends her time checking the news to see how horrible Nick is painted, and she hopes to get her revenge. Nick explains this to Tanner, who believes him and accepts to help him. He tells Nick that to sell Nick's story, they have to stop America from believing Amy is a sweetheart. So he has to find out who Amy has offended. Her two ex-boyfriends are the first on his list. The first person being Tommy Hare, who Amy accuses of raping her despite having consensual intercourse when he wanted out of the relationship. Tommy can't testify against Amy because of his crime records. And Desi Collins, Amy's obsessed lover, is still obsessed with Amy. Amy realizes things are going as planned, and Tanner also asks what Nick saw in his father's house. In his office, he saw panties. In Margot's woodshed, he saw the box. So there has to be a clue left in the house too. But Rhonda has found it. It's the diary. While Amy is out with her new neighbors, her money wand falls. The following day, her neighbors attack her. They tell her they know she is hiding her identity and she won't call the police. So they steal her money. She relocates and starts living in the car, but finds that difficult. So she calls Daisy, her obsessed lover. Desi immediately arrives at her rescue. On the other hand, Tanner advises that Nick confesses about his infidelity with his girlfriend, Andy, beats him to it, and she confesses first. Amy tells Desi how Nick has hurt her and says if she returns, the people will hate her. In a few seconds, she convinces him and he accommodates her in his estate. The house is fully secured with cameras and he tries to make her comfortable. Nick decides to go on air announcing that he loves his wife. Amy watches it and she is convinced to return, but she can't because Desi is now living there with her and he won't let her go. Rhonda also responds to the call she got from Amy and checks Margot's house. She finds a golf ball and the ball and arrests Nick. She interrogates him about the things in the diary, and he denies what he didn't do. They find the murder weapon Amy planted for them and arrest Nick, but Tanner bails him the following day. Amy decides to leave Desi. After Desi leaves for work, she goes to a camera blind spot, ties her hands to show captive signs, and goes to the camera to cry. Then she cuts her private part with blades. When Desi comes home, she asks him to have intercourse with her. And in the course, she kills him with a box cutter and returns home in a pool of blood. She is tested and the doctors confirm she was raped. She testifies that Desi kidnapped her for days and tied her. Rhonda tries to question the tips she left behind, but she calls Rhonda incompetent. She returns home and confesses to Nick that she killed Desi because he begged her to come home. She becomes the miracle of Mississippi, and Rhonda knows she can do nothing. Nick remains with her, although unsure of his safety. He insists he would leave her. Sometime later, an interview is to take place in their home. Amy gives Nick a positive pregnancy test before the program and says she had implanted the sperm he had at the fertility clinic. He has no choice but to remain and care for his child, despite Margot's refusal. Eventually, Nick and Amy announce on the television program that they are expecting a baby. Subscribe to watch more videos like this, leave a like to help the channel out, also leave a comment if you'd like us to recap your favorite movie. Thanks for watching.